Welcome to This Week in High School Sports, and Steve Willits is here with his Day After St. Patrick's Day shirt.
I sure am. I wore my green, and you, I'm presuming, wore it yesterday, so that's why you're not today.
Of course, yes.
Okay,
I only
fair
have
enough.
one green thing, so at least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I'll roll with that.
All right. Before we get started, I wanted to remind people that our sponsor, Red Onion Burgers, actually the charitable arm, the Cheeseburger Babies Foundation, is sponsoring the annual Easter egg hunt in Mountlake Terrace. I want to make sure you save the date for that. It's March 31st at 10 a.m. at Evergreen Playfield. It's always a fun time.
I've been to that event in the past. It is a fun time. So a lot of fun for the adults and the kids.
Yep, that's right. Filled eggs with lots of yummy things. So let's move on to, we're going to talk about soccer. An amazing soccer game, right?
Yeah, an amazing feat anyway, if
Yeah.
you will. Bobby Stoyanoff, who we talked about quite a bit over the last couple of years, and I have a feeling we will continue to talk about him throughout the spring. Mountlake Terrace soccer player, wasn't even going to play for the high school team this year. He was going to focus on his academy play. Decided to come out for the Hawks again, and it was worth it. He scored 7 goals the other night in a 10-1 victory over Granite Falls. Needed to score those extra goals just in case Granite Falls came back, apparently. But
Yeah.
Either way, Bobby, for your efforts and for your 7 goals in one match, you are our Action Jackson Plumbing Boy Player Athlete of the Week. We'll have the Girl Award coming up later in the show, but Bobby, yeah, certainly deserving of that. Not one hat trick, not even 2 hat tricks, 2 hat tricks and 1 goal on top of that. So yeah, scores a touchdown, if you will. 7 goals for him. Also, Edmonds Woodway picking up a couple of victories this week as they defeated Juanita 5-1 and Burlington Edison 3-0. So the soccer teams locally off to good starts, and we'll continue to watch all 4 of our Edmonds School District teams throughout the spring.
You always say soccer, there's no action.
There's no action?
Yeah, I mean, don't you say, well, no scoring?
I prefer to see more points than not. Yes,
I'm
I
with you on
like
that.
a good high scoring affair, and when Bobby's on the field, you never know what to expect. So
Right.
certainly with him, no 0-0 games or 1-0 or 1-1 shootouts, if you will. We like to see goals, and Bobby certainly exceeded everybody's expectation the other night.
Very good. Okay, well, now we're moving on to softball.
We are. Softball season started this past week as well. One of the teams, Mountlake Terrace, co-Wesco champions along with Meadowdale last year. Hawks only had 2 seniors on that team last season too, so they're expecting big things. We thought we'd bring their manager in along with her assistant coach, who happens to be her father. Here's a conversation we had with Shannon and Craig Rasmussen of the Mountlake Terrace Hawks softball team. High school softball season is underway, and the Mountlake Terrace Hawks are looking for big things this season. Co-Wesco champions last year with a 14-3 record in league play. Made it to the state tournament after winning the district championship. All sounds great, doesn't it?
Yep.
And with us right now, the manager of the Mountlake Terrace Hawks softball team, Shannon Rasmussen, along with assistant coach Craig Rasmussen. Last names, same? Stands to reason. They are daughter and father. It's a family affair at Mountlake Terrace. Shannon, I'm going to start off with you. When you took the job a few years back, this is your 6th year. Was it an easy decision to make to hire this guy off to your right?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be a coach sometime, and I grew up in a fast pitch family, and my dad plays still, and I grew up watching him play, and I grew up with him coaching me, so it was one of those things that I was like, okay, if I get the job, are you going to be able to make it work to be able to come out and support me and be my assistant out there? So.
And Craig, how easy of a decision was it for you? Is this something you always wanted to do? Had you thought about it in the past?
I thought it'd be pretty fun to do. And I'm retired now, so the first 2 years I don't think I was retired, but I am now, so now it's easy.
So you coached Shannon back in the day. So obviously you knew she was a softball player. You knew maybe one day she would coach. Had the 2 of you ever had discussions in her younger days that, hey, if she ever becomes a coach, then maybe the 2 of you can do it together, or is it just something that kind of transpired over time?
I think it just transpired. I don't think we ever really talked about it before or anything that I remember.
And what's it been like working with Dad? How's that dynamic?
It's fun. It's definitely a different dynamic having him be my coach for so long and then me taking the head coach job and kind of being able to be that person that gets the final word and gets the final decision. It's definitely been a little different there, but it's been fun.
It was.
Now she's my boss.
Yes.
I was just going to ask because, I mean, back in the day, Shannon take out the trash, right? Now
Right.
she's having you do things.
Yep.
How has that been for you? A fun transition?
It took a little bit. I mean, I thought we were going in as equals at first, but I didn't realize how much work she had to do as being the head coach. and I'm glad I didn't have to do it.
Right. And I've got to
I
think
like
for,
the coaching part.
yeah, I can imagine. And I've got to think for you, Shannon, knowing that you have trust in somebody that's on your bench. You don't always find that in coaches. I know it's kind of hard to find the right fit sometimes, and somebody that you know obviously extremely well and that you have a lot of trust in. Gotta think that makes it easier for you.
Yeah, it makes it easier. Like, obviously, people always have different thoughts and how they want to coach and how they want to play their game and how they want to whatever, like, do different plays and things like that. And knowing that I grew up with how he taught me, it's been easy to have a coach that has that same outlook and those same ideas of how to coach. So,
And Craig, do you see a lot of yourself in Shannon when she's coaching, or how are you? Are there similarities out there on the diamond?
Yeah, I think there are. Yeah, I could see she's learned from me, I think.
Shannon, what about you? Do you see the similarities, and maybe are there any differences in the styles or philosophies?
no, I do. I think it's obviously what I grew up with and it's what
Yeah.
I was around. And so there's a lot of things when he was coaching that have
Yeah,
kind of
we'd ride to the
come down.
games and home from the games together, and we'd talk about the games all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And so 6 years as the Mountlake Terrace coach, and I should mention the two of you are also coaching together for another softball team these days, Briar Terrace Middle School, which obviously feeds into Mountlake Terrace High School. Shannon, this is your second year as the head coach, and probably an easier gig for you because you work at the school during the day. Tell me about taking that job and what that's been like coaching two softball teams now.
Easier in the fact that I don't have to actually drive to get there, but it's definitely very different going from coaching a varsity softball team where most of the girls have experience and have played to my first year last year. We had 14 girls on the team, and out of those 14 girls, only 3 of them had ever played. And so it's definitely going from the highest of high levels all the way down to beginning level. And so we have to kind of manage the girls a little differently and coach them a little differently and start at very, very basic. But it's exciting to see because the girls that were on our team last year as 8th graders now are also on our JV team this year. And so it's exciting to see the progress they've been able to make in the last 2 years. But
Sure.
They improve so
Yes.
quickly.
Yeah, well, I was going to
You
ask you
watch
too
them.
because you
Right.
actually get to coach more, right,
Right.
Craig? I mean, in terms of helping
Right.
with the development, or
Exactly.
are you enjoying that part of the job?
Yeah, I see the girls that age, and I see them do something wrong, and I just want to say something all the time.
And I've got to think
Correctly.
too. With middle school, they play softball in the fall,
Yeah.
whereas high school it's in the spring. And so obviously you can make that move and coach both because it doesn't overlap. Are we seeing more of that? Do we have other high school coaches who coach middle school also? And I've got to think there are advantages in terms of trying to develop them at a younger age to get them ready for your other team, right?
yeah, definitely. I know Dennis at Meadowdale, he does the middle
right.
school and the high school. Mike at Woodway, he previously was the coach at College Place. This year he took the year off, so they had a new coach. At Alderwood, they have Jamie, who's actually one of the JV coaches and assistant coaches up at Linwood High School. And so pretty much most of our district has the same middle school and high school coach. So to be able to coach the girls for 6 years is huge, and to be able to see that progress.
We always hear about basketball teams having feeder programs. You don't even need that. It's built in, I guess, at the
Yeah.
middle schools. Everybody's
Right.
coaching them anyway. Before we talk about some of the players on your Mountlake Terrace team, I want to talk about one of your other coaches, Herb Hudson. Herb's with you the entire way too, right? He was the
Yeah.
Yep.
head coach for the Briar Terrace girls team before turning it over to you, but he still helps out. He's also been your JV coach at Mountlake Terrace for quite a while now. Tell me a little bit about the relationship with Herb.
It was kind of funny. I had no idea who Herb was, and when I initially got the job 6 years ago, I was talking to Stu and mentioned that I was going to have my dad be my assistant coach. He goes, "Oh, well, you've got Herb too." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Oh, Herb's been around." He's like, "He's been here forever," and that he just kind of comes with the program, and he's just a great person to have around. He's willing to do whatever it takes to help the program, to help the girls, is just incredibly supportive of not only our team, but also all of Mountlake Terrace Athletics. And he
He'd
runs
been
our-
around so long, he knew everything that was going on when we first started, and we didn't know what was happening.
Kind of makes
We're
it
just
easier for you to
learning.
get started,
Yeah,
right?
it was
yeah,
just-
with
it
him
was
there.
really
it was
easy to
real
transition there with us. And
And the fact that when you took over the Briar Terrace program, he stayed there as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got another coach on your team. Tell me a little bit about Bailey.
Bailey is from Spokane. She's coaching our JV team, and basically when we sat in her interview, she walked out of her interview and Stu looked at me and was like, "I feel like I just went through your exact same interview that I went through with you, but now with her." And he goes, "Do you want to just call her right now and tell her she got the job?" And she's awesome with the girls. She knows softball. She's a catcher, which I was a pitcher, and so it's like a good compliment there. She's able to help the girls there, and I know the girls love her. She kind of a similar situation. She grew up with her dad also coaching her, and her dad isn't coaching this year, but previously was a coach over in Spokane, and so kind of grew up in a very similar situation to me. But yeah, she's doing great things down there with them, and they're really excited to be out there, and I'm really excited to have her, and hopefully she'll stick around for a while. So
Some of the
This is her-
girls started calling her mom
Yeah.
Start calling Bailey mom. Okay.
instead of coach.
Okay, so you got an
They're that
interesting.
close to her.
Yeah.
It's a family affair indeed, as we
It
said
is.
earlier. So looking back on the 2017 season, 14-3 in league play. You then move over to districts, which are 2A, because Mountlake Terrace is a 2A school playing in a 3A conference. You go undefeated, you win the district championship, you go to state. 11-inning loss in the first round at the state.
Second round.
Or was it second
Second
round?
round,
Okay,
yeah.
after winning the first round game, that's right. Overall, when you kind of have a chance to reflect and look back on 2017, I've got to think maybe a disappointment in that second round loss, but I've got to think you're feeling pretty good about the way things played out.
Yeah, it was a good season, and it was fun to see the girls like Kira and Gabby step up and be able to be out there, and I feel like they took the team on their shoulders and were like, come on, we're doing this. And we had so much inexperience with so many freshmen on the team last year, and they just were great leaders and brought the team farther than most people probably expected us to even go last year.
Yeah, Craig, what about you? There were only 2 seniors on that entire team, and as
Right.
Shannon just mentioned, a lot of freshmen that were put into the starting roles right away, and yet there you were in the state tournament. I've got to think that you were
Right.
feeling pretty good about that.
I think we cried when we won, and we cried when we lost.
Pro and con there. You good news, you only lost 2 seniors this year.
Yeah.
Bad news
Yeah.
is Kira Doan and Gabby Calhoun, 2 pretty darn good seniors at that.
Yeah.
2 seniors that also pitched quite a bit for you last year. Tell me a little bit about the mound right now and what the pitchers are looking like.
Yeah, losing Kira was a big loss. She definitely was our ace last year, and we've got a younger pitching staff this year. I feel like we have a full staff instead of we're waiting for somebody to kind of step up and be our ace. We've got Delaney Flynn and Kiera Scott, who are both sophomores, who Kiera saw a little bit more time last year pitching and did a great job for us. Lainey saw a couple innings here and there, but she's out here ready to go this year. And then we also have Sarah Davis in the mix, she's a junior, I think threw just a couple innings last year, but she's been working really hard with her select team and is out here ready to throw too. So just kind of waiting for one of them to step up. And
you talked about that because Kira Doan was your ace last year, and yet you started Kira Scott in the first state game last year. Was that to kind of give her some confidence going into this year? What was the thought there? You taking a freshman and putting her on the mound in a huge game like that? Were you kind of keeping one eye on 2018 when you did that?
We scouted them.
yeah,
We knew a little bit about the team, so we knew it was a little easier team there that we thought we could get by. And we knew we were going to have to use her sometime, so we thought, well, this is the point right now. Then ride Kira, see how long she can go.
it's kind of one of those things, if you want to get far in state, you've got to have more than one pitcher. I don't think teams are really successful with only one pitcher. And it was, do we want to use her now in maybe a game that might be a little bit easier for us to win versus use her, keep her later and use our ace and use up all her innings. And so we did the same thing when we went to state 6 years ago as well.
And it
We
worked.
threw, and it worked then. And
You got the
so
win, yeah. And again, it gave her confidence coming into
Yeah.
this year, so it certainly helps. Looking at your infield right now, certainly some names that we recognize from last year, but also some new names as well too. Tell us a little bit about the infield.
we've got Maya Kopp back at first base. She's one of our senior captains. And then our other 2 seniors, Jazz Zenk is back at third and Sammy's back at shortstop. I think definitely have one of the toughest left sides of the infield in our whole league. Nothing gets by them. They've already in our 2 games made some awesome plays out there. And then we were able to pull Jenna Maxfield in from center field, who's now playing second base. And she's one who I think would probably be starting shortstop on a lot of other teams in the league. So she's just a really solid infielder and knows the game really well.
And you've got a catcher who's been back there for a little bit, right? Tell me a little bit about
Yeah,
Jamie.
Jamie, yeah, it's her second
Yeah.
year.
Jamie Bingaman, yeah.
Right, yeah, so she was a freshman last year. She did a real good job for us. Really surprised us.
Very nice. And then as far as the outfield, Craig, who are we looking at out in the outfield right now?
Well, we got Kennedy back.
It's Kennedy Cooper.
Kennedy
Yep.
Cooper. Laney's been playing outfield, and
Kiara
Kiara
and Crease.
and Crease.
So some
Couple
solid
of-
players out there.
couple of more sophomores
We got a
out
lot
there.
of versatility
Yeah.
out there. Yeah.
And it feels like you have a lot of depth 1 through 9 in your batting order, which you don't always see
Yeah.
at high school softball,
No.
right? So I've got to think that's comforting to know that in just about any inning you feel like you can go out and get some runs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got not only girls 1 through 9, but I feel like we've got bats on the bench also that can come in and get some big hits and make some big differences in games.
And so we should also point out first win of the season the other day. I know you took a loss to Lake Stevens to start the season off. A very good 4A team at Wesco non-conference
It was
game.
a tough loss. It was a really close game, and we played well. So
Pitcher who for Lake Stevens, who's going on to play college ball next year. And then you picked up an 18-4 victory over Mariner the other day.
yeah.
Gotta be nice to get 18 runs for your first victory of the year. Tell me a little bit about that game.
It kind of started a little bit slow. We were kind of trying out some different lineups and getting some girls in that didn't get to play against Lake Stevens. And we came out right off the bat and got a runner on, and Jasmine came up and nailed a home run. And so we knew we were kind of on the good side and getting going. But our bats kind of just kept going, and I think we were able to score at least 1 run every inning and had a couple of bigger innings near the end and scored like 4 or 5 runs. But got our bats going. That was the big thing.
Bats going. And for the effort, we're going to also give Jazz our Action Jackson Plumbing Player of the Week. 2 home runs in that game, 6 RBI, correct?
That's right.
Yep.
Jazz already collected one of these during basketball season, but we'll give her another one now for softball as well, and she earned it. A nice outing for her as well as her teammates. What are the expectations for this team this year? Is Wesco another possibility, winning the conference and getting back to districts and winning again? What are we hoping for, or do you even put goals on a season at this point?
I know that talking to some of the girls, we want to get back to state, definitely. We want, Wesco's always an option. Pitching is our big, it's not a weakness, I wouldn't say, but it's our big question mark that we've got to get our pitching going and so we can compete with these other teams. Wesco's going to be tough this year. I think last year it was kind of, at least when they got to state, it was kind of a down year. That we had some success there, but there's some really tough Wesco teams out there this year, and so we'll see what
sky's the
happens
limit,
next
right?
week when we actually start playing each other, I think, is
Sure.
what's going to be the big difference. So
Craig, is it a fun team to coach? I mean, the group of girls you have right now?
We've had a good group. Every year we've had a great group. Yeah, and I think we've never really talked about goals as a team ever. But I know in my head, mine's always to go to that last game of the year. And so
Get to that
it still
championship
is.
game.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so we will see what happens here. A lot of softball coming up. We should mention home games this week. Tuesday against Glacier Peak, Wednesday against Edmonds Woodway, which would, I guess, be your first league game,
Yep.
correct? And then Friday you go to Shorecrest. So if the weather cooperates, that's always kind of a big question. Things get rolling here. Not an easy schedule, we should point out to you.
No.
Lake Stevens and now Glacier Peak's always good too.
yeah, we didn't get to play Glacier Peak last year, and so we haven't played them in a couple of years. But I know they were always tough when they were down with 3A. So, and I've heard they've got a pretty solid hitting lineup. So it'll be a good test for us.
We'll find out what Mountlake Terrace can do. So certainly we encourage folks to get over to MTHS Tuesday and Wednesday for those games. And hey, if you're in the Shoreline area on Friday, head on over to Shorecrest. Shannon, Craig, thank you very much for your time, and congratulations on what's been a really nice career over at Mountlake Terrace so far. I know a few trips to state tournaments and
Hopefully many more.
hopefully many more to come. So Shannon and Craig are doing an outstanding job, and we wish the Hawks nothing but the best here in 2018.
I imagine that must be an interesting experience for Shannon's dad to all of a sudden be taking orders from his daughter.
Yeah, and they work so well together. I've had a chance to watch that chemistry over the last few years, and I don't think Shannon's too overbearing in her authoritative style, if you will. And the two of them really have a nice chemistry and a bond, and it's kind of fun to see the two of them working together.
Yeah, it is. And we have a lot of good softball talent in this area, and we're going to talk about more of that, right?
We do. The Meadowdale Mavericks. If you're going to talk about softball in South Snohomish County or in the Edmonds School District, you kind of have to mention them. 6 consecutive trips to the state tournament, looking to make it number 7 this year. It might be a little more difficult. It's a young team that graduated quite a few players, but they do still have a few seniors left, and 2 of them came into the studio to talk about the upcoming season. Here's a conversation we had with Carrie and Jasmine of the Meadowdale Mavericks softball team. The Meadowdale Mavericks softball team is back on the field after going to the state tournament 6 consecutive years and having one of the most successful softball programs in the entire state of Washington. These young ladies here are ready to try to keep the tradition alive, and with us right now, 2 seniors from that team. Carrie Petersen, who is a catcher for the Mavericks, and Jasmine Welaye, who is the second baseman this year. Ladies, first of all, thanks for coming into the studio. Carrie, you were on that team 2 years ago that made it to won the state championship. You even got a little playing time as a sophomore, and now here you are as a senior, one of the only 4 seniors on the team. Got to think it's a little bit different this year, though, isn't it? A little bit younger team, and now you're in a different leadership role.
Yeah, it's a lot different. I'm trying my best to get my team back there, and all of our seniors are working really hard.
And so far, so good. Jasmine, for you, I know that we talked about it before the cameras were rolling. Good and bad, right? That you have this tradition of going to the state tournament 6 consecutive years, something that not too many teams in the entire state can claim. I've got to think, in one respect, it puts a lot of pressure on you, but at the same time, it keeps you guys motivated and knowing that you want to keep that tradition going, right?
Yeah, it definitely puts pressure, especially on the seniors, to try to motivate our younger girls to get there, but it's definitely a very fun achievement we can have for our senior year to make it all the way there.
Is it something that gets talked about very often? I mean, is everybody aware of the fact that there's a streak?
We have started talking about going to state before even the first day of trials was over. It was definitely on everybody's mind. That's what everybody's goal on the team is, to get there.
And Carrie, I've got to think that for the younger girls, and you only have one junior on the team too, so it's mostly sophomores and freshmen. Even though those girls weren't there when the team won the state championship 2 years ago, or maybe the third place run that they had back in 2013, or whatever it might be along the way, I've got to think that even the younger Maverick players, they grew up in the area, they kind of know what's going on here, right? They're well aware of what they've walked into.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the girls had older siblings on the team as well. Like Bryn Webster, who's on our team right now, her sister Caitlin was on the team that won state. Jacelyn Hart, her sister, had made it to state a couple of times, and I think she was on the team that got third. So a lot of our girls are aware of it and know what that felt like.
And what is it like for the two of you, having played down in Lacey at the state tournament? Jasmine, when you get a little taste of that success and when you get to see what the experience is like of going to a state tournament, does it motivate you that much more during the off season to get ready for another year, knowing that you want to get back there?
Last year, thinking about going to state was always just like something that would might happen. Like, we obviously wanted to get there, but for myself, it was never really I couldn't picture what it would be like since I've never experienced it before. But now that I've been there and I've played in the games and I've competed with the other schools, it's definitely more of a reality for me this year. And now I know what we need to work on as a team to get there, because last year was kind of in the dark. I didn't really know what we needed the most, but now after having that experience of playing, I definitely know what we need to do in order to make it back there again.
And Carrie, for you, having played in that state championship game, I know after Savannah Spratt was injured in the game, you came in for her. Do some of the girls ask you about that, what it was like, and do they still want to hear stories?
I don't think a lot of the girls knew that I played in the game because I had just gotten pulled up and I wasn't expecting to play. I was mostly a pinch runner for Lauren, so not all the girls know, but if they do know, they would ask me. And I remember being really, really nervous, and Madison and Caitlin having to calm me down a little bit because it's just a whole entire different experience than any other that I've encountered, and it was crazy. And I was very nervous.
Yeah, very cool experience at that. As far as where you're both playing this year, both of you making adjustments, moving positions, certainly not a position that necessarily you haven't played in the past, but one that you hadn't played at Meadowdale. And Jasmine, maybe I'll start with you. You were an outfielder last year, and now you're playing second base. What's that transition been like?
Yeah, last year I primarily played left field, switching off with Jacelyn, but this year being moved into the infield, goes along with that leadership role. I think I like it because it allows me to be more vocal on the field, because usually infielders will talk more than the outfield will, but I think it just allows me to carry out my leadership role as a senior, and also just something new to work on, keep things fresh.
Had you played second base in the past at any level?
No, I was primarily a first baseman, so if I was ever in the infield, I'd be playing first base. But after playing softball for so long, I know all of the rotations and the plays, so it's nothing more than a different position.
Still softball.
Yeah.
Very nice. And then Carrie, for you, a position that you've been familiar with growing up, but you hadn't played at Meadowdale yet, and I think we understand why. You are now a catcher for the Mavericks. Tell us a little bit about playing catcher there.
I'm really excited that I get the opportunity to play there this year, and I'm sure that you're going to say I have some very big shoes to fill with Emma being gone, and she's just an amazing player, so I definitely feel the pressure of having to kind of live up to her standards, but I'm just excited to have that leadership role and to be able to be a really big part of this team.
Yeah, we should mention Emma Helm is who we're talking about, who's now the catcher at the University of Washington. And when you first sat down when we were talking before we had the cameras rolling, I think one of the first things I said was, catcher, you have some big shoes to fill. And you told me that I'm not the first person that said that to you, right?
Yeah.
Who else says that to you out on the field?
A lot of umpires say it to me. Like I said, the first 3 or Jamboree in the first 2 games, both of the umpires have told me that I have very big shoes to fill with Emma being gone, and many parents and players and coaches have said it to me as well, and I know that.
Well, you seem like you have the right mentality and the mindset for it, though, because I think a lot of people would be intimidated by that. And Emma being obviously one of the best softball players to come out of the state in a while, and here you are stepping into her spot. It seems like you've taken the right approach. Is it something you've had to kind of work to do, or had you been thinking about this for a while, knowing that ultimately one day you might step into those shoes and become the catcher? And
Yeah, I started my freshman year knowing that I was not going to be catching no matter what the circumstances were, because they had Mackenzie Bevan, who is also a backup catcher on varsity. So I knew that I wasn't going to be catching, but I was hoping that one day I would get the opportunity. So I've been working towards that, and it's been one of my goals since I was a freshman.
And here you are starting now, your senior year. So tell me a little bit about each other. Jasmine, I'll start with you. Tell me about the young lady who's trying to fill Emma Helm's shoes. Tell me about Carrie Petersen, the catcher, and Carrie Petersen, the teammate.
Okay. Well, I think out of everybody on the team, she is definitely the one to fill Emma's shoes. She's been playing catcher for as long as I can remember, ever since Little League. She's always been a catcher. She's definitely one of the teammates who puts in the most work on and off the field. She has team first, always softball first. And so I think out of everybody, she is the most dedicated to the spot on the field. And being a catcher, you also have to be very loud and vocal, and she's definitely good at doing that during teams. During games, she gets everybody together when we're in tough spots and lets everybody know what to do. So I think it's a very good role for her as a senior also to have her in the catching position.
So all the attributes you want in a catcher, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Very nice. And Carrie, tell me about Jasmine a little bit.
Jasmine. She's an amazing person, on and off the field, and she's such a great teammate. And she's just, I don't know, she's a great player overall. She really dedicates herself to the sport, and she's hitting-wise, she's a great contact hitter, and that's something that we really love about her, is that she knows how to get the bat on the ball, and she's very loud and very positive, and just the best teammate that you could ask for, really.
Where are the two of you batting in the order right now, too?
I'm batting 4th in the order.
Okay.
I moved around a bit. I started, I think, 8, and now I've moved up to 6.
Okay. So not too far away from each other in the lineup.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, very good. Tell me a little bit about Coach Hopkins. Dennis Hopkins has been at it for a while now, and obviously having a lot of success over at Meadowdale. What's it like playing for him, Jasmine?
Definitely a different experience than I have with other select coaches, but he is one of the most dedicated coaches I've ever met. Everything for him is always team first. We are definitely one of his number one priorities in his life, and he makes that very aware to us. And it's nice having a coach that is that dedicated to you, because it makes you want to put in that extra work. And especially, he's been coaching for such a long time now, and for him to go to state 6 times in a row just shows how much dedication he's put into this team. So it's really nice to play for somebody who, they care about how you're doing. And he is just a very good coach overall. He always tries to make us feel comfortable, or try to make us feel uncomfortable and make us feel comfortable later. But yeah, he is definitely one of the most fun coaches I've played for.
Yeah. Carrie, what is Dennis and maybe some of the other coaches, what have they meant to you in your career?
Dennis has really helped to push me to do better. He gives me that drive that I need to be a better player and teammate and person overall, and I know that he genuinely cares about us and he wants us to do well. And I mentioned earlier that he really cares about academics. He wants us to be a student first and then athlete second. So if we're ever struggling, then he knows that, or he lets us go do stuff that we need to do, like take tests after school, or maybe even miss a practice if we're struggling in a class or something like that. And he also cares about our well-being as people, because we're also people, we're not just athletes.
Absolutely.
And everybody has bad days, and he recognizes that, and I know that if there's a problem that I could always go to him as a person. And he's very he's a great person.
That's what you want in
He
a coach.
also always stresses like it's okay to make mistakes. Like if we make a mistake at practice, he never yells at anybody or like makes us like feel terrible about it. Like he gives us another one, we fix it. Like I don't think anybody's scared to make mistakes at practice because of the way he coaches us.
And obviously the positive approach has worked. 6 consecutive trips to
Yeah.
state. Let's talk a little bit about the personnel on the field in terms of the other teammates. Maybe we'll start with you, Carrie. Tell me a little bit about the pitching right now, since you're catching it. Who's stepping into Lauren Dent's shoes this year?
Kate Houghton is stepping into Lauren Dent's shoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's it like catching Kate?
It's different because I haven't worked with her really ever. She used to play for the select team that I play for now. So I've talked to her a couple of times, I've caught for her a couple of times, but it's a different experience than I have with my other pitchers because we don't play with each other all year long. But she's doing great. She's young, so there's that, but she's working really hard and she's doing a great job for us.
Very nice. And when Kate's not on the mound, do we have other pitchers that are really ready to step up at this point? Or?
We have a backup pitcher, Kelsey Studioso, and then Olivia Dimmick is also our backup catcher. So, yeah, Kelsey hasn't pitched in a while, but I watched her pitch not too long ago, and she's pretty good. I don't know why she doesn't pitch anymore.
Might be pitching more as the season goes on. We'll see. And Jasmine, for you out in the infield, who else is playing along with you?
We got all the sophomores. We got Kelsey Sidioso, Olivia Dimmick, and Caitlin Bridgewater is at first base. So it's just a very young field, and then we got the rest of the sophomores and some seniors in the outfield as well.
So you're the lone senior in the infield then, it sounds like.
Yeah, besides
the
Carrie,
catcher here, yeah.
So we're surrounded by all the young players. So it's nice. Just again gives us another leadership opportunity, but kind of hard getting all the kinks worked out because everybody plays a little bit different. And then again in the outfield we got Emma Meyer and Bryn Webster. Tyra will hopefully be out there when she's not injured anymore. And then we got Allie, the freshman, in the outfield as well. So it's just a lot of young players. So it just gives us something to work on and then allows us to kind of teach a little bit for all the younger players on the team.
You've played 2 games so far this year, both non-conference games against probably maybe the 2 best pitchers in the entire county, really, at Monroe and Lake Stevens. With such a young team, I maybe ask you too personally, do you kind of like having that stiff competition early in the season, or?
Yeah, I like having the tough competition because it kind of gives us an idea of who we are as a team, because some teams, when they play those teams, are just so scared to go play them, and they're like, oh my gosh, Sarah Johnson, oh my gosh, she's so scary, and they just kind of go into the box really timid and are afraid to go after her. But we really went out of the gate going right after her and going up swinging, and we weren't scared of her. And it also shows us whether or not we're going to give up when times get tough, and we didn't do that in either of the games.
Very nice. And it only gets easier from here once you go up against the 2 toughest pitchers in the entire area, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. Hey, as far as the team's looking this year, is this a team that can make a run at Wesco again? Is it a team that, do you think as time progresses and we get further into the season, with so much youth, are we going to start to see the team get better as the year goes along? Is that kind of the hope right now?
We definitely have some stuff we need to work on, but I'm hoping we can make a good run in districts and hopefully get to state. It just depends on what we can get done between here and the end of the season, especially with all the younger girls. I think we just need to get their confidence up a little bit, because I know when I first made varsity, I was scared to do anything wrong, and I think they're in the same shoes that I once was. So we just got to get those kinks worked out, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. You're both seniors, so what does the future hold for you? Carrie, I understand you've already got a commitment to play softball next year.
Yes.
And where are you heading off to?
I'm going to Concordia University in Portland, Oregon.
Okay, and what went into that decision? Why Concordia?
It has a great elementary education program, which is what I want to study. And it actually has an elementary school on campus. So it's amazing. It's known for that program and also the nursing program as well. And the coach reminds me a lot of my coach right now. And I just loved it there. And the team was great. They were all really nice. And I don't know if you know Allie Steen, but she plays there as
Meadowdale,
well.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to that. So,
Very, very good. And as far as, do we know what age we want to teach eventually, or
elementary, like
kindergarten,
about-
6th grade, somewhere in between?
Preferably 4th or below.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for you. And then Jasmine, I understand you don't know where you're heading off to college next year, but you have a little bit of an idea as to what you want to study, right?
Yeah, I have a few options as to where I go to college, but I know that I'm looking to do some kind of nursing degree, something in the medical field, just because it's always been a passion of mine just to help other people. I've always wanted, I wanted to have a job where I can always feel like I'm doing something good for people, not necessarily just crunching numbers or doing stuff like that. So I just wanted to do something where I knew I was giving back to the community in some way.
Well, teaching elementary and nursing, both of those are certainly going to give back to the community. And you're also both busy when you're not playing for Meadowdale. I know, Carrie, for you, you play for a club team too, right?
Yeah.
Who are you playing for, and how much of a time commitment is that right now?
I play for Fury. Right now we're only doing 1 practice a week, so then we have some time to recover. That's on Sundays, so we have every day except for Sunday for high school. So then I go on Sunday and go practice with my select team. But usually during regular season for select and when we're not playing school softball, we have about 3 practices a week and with optional practices and hitting and stuff like that. So
you're getting plenty of softball in right
yeah,
now.
definitely.
And for you, Jasmine, I understand you are also a link leader at school, right? So you're keeping busy away from the softball field
Yeah.
when you're not playing.
So my job as a link leader is just to make sure that all the freshmen get acclimated to the new climate at a high school, because it can be a really frightening thing to transition from going to middle school to high school. So my job is to basically work with one of my partners, and we have a group of freshmen that we kind of keep our eye out on to make sure that they're not getting into any trouble and they're making good choices, and we can help them with schoolwork or take them out to lunch sometimes, just give them somebody to talk to who's an upperclassman. So it's been a very rewarding experience.
So it's a lot like your softball team right now. A lot of youth.
Yeah,
You're working with that.
exactly.
Very nicely done. And so again, they're getting it done on the field, doing their best to get it done off the field. Carrie, Jasmine, congratulations on a lot of success at Meadowdale so far, and best of luck to you throughout your senior season.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I can only imagine what it must be like for Carrie Petersen to be following in Emma Helm's footsteps and to have that pressure to kind of be her.
Well, and especially when nobody lets you forget.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the first questions I asked her when she came in, when we started talking about it, and as soon as I said, you're the catcher this year, and her face lit up, she knew where I was going to go next,
Yeah.
and she said, I know what you're about to say, and sure enough, following in her footsteps, and she said the umpires pointed out to her, the parents pointed out to her,
Yeah.
everybody seems to bring it up, and certainly she has the right frame of mind, though. I mean, she's very positive about it. There's a smile on her face when she talks about it. She jokes, and you have to almost have that mentality because, again, Emma Helm is a once-in-a-generational player, so when you're stepping into her spot and you're playing the exact same position, you're going to get those comparisons, and for Carrie to have that frame of mind, I commend her for that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, we have other sports. What's on the plate next?
Baseball.
Ah.
Oh, look at I see what you did there. What's on the plate next? Home plate, a spot that Mountlake Terrace has seen a few times already this year. 2 victories for them in their first 2 games over Mariner and Glacier Peak, knocking off a few of those Wesco 4A teams. Unfortunately, non-conference games, but nonetheless, that gives them confidence going forward. Meadowdale also picking up a nice victory this past week over Lake Stevens, a team that won the Wesco 4A championship last year. So the Mavericks looking good so far, and Tommy Dimmick, I believe, picking up the victory on the mound, who we had in studio just a couple weeks ago. And tennis, we'll give them a little shout out too. 2 of our local teams picking up victories already in the first week of the season. Edmonds Woodway defeating Oak Harbor 5-2. Meadowdale over Bothell also 5-2. So the girls tennis players in the area off to a nice start.
Okay, very good. Well, we are done for the day, I guess, and we'll be back next week. And remember, mark your calendars for March 31st for the Easter egg hunt in Mountlake Terrace, and have a great week.